The message arrived at the Galactic Concord headquarters like all the others before it. A standard diplomatic transmission, sent to Earth as a courtesy that no one expected would be answered. For 242 summits, spanning over 3 centuries, Earth had received these invitations. And for 242 summits, Earth had remained silent. John Miller sighed as he prepared the invitation for the 243rd Galactic Summit. His 4 eyes blinked in sequence, a sign of boredom among his species. As Chief Communications Officer for the Concord, it was his duty to send these invitations to all known intelligent species, even the ones that never responded. Another message. For the humans? Asked Kate Brown, his human assistant. She was one of only 8 humans working at Concord headquarters, all considered somewhat odd by their own people for choosing to work with aliens. Yes, John replied, his greenish skin rippling slightly, though I don't know why we bother anymore. Kate smiled. Protocol is protocol. Besides, my people might surprise you someday. John made a sound that served as laughter in his species. Your people have been surprising us since we discovered your radio signals 500 years ago, but never by attending our summits. He pressed his hand against the control panel, and the invitation was sent across the vast distance to Earth. John expected it would be ignored like all the others. He closed the communications terminal and moved on to more pressing matters. 3 weeks later, John was reviewing security protocols for the upcoming summit when his terminal chimed. A priority message had arrived. Probably the Zeta Consortium complaining about their seating arrangements again, he muttered to himself as he accessed the message. The source code made him freeze. Earth, after centuries of silence. Earth had responded. John read the message twice, not believing what he was seeing. He called for Kate immediately. They've accepted, he said when she arrived, his secondary eyes blinking rapidly with excitement. Earth has accepted the invitation. Kate looked surprised, then pleased. Well, it's about time. What did they say? John displayed the message on the larger screen. The United Earth Federation acknowledges the Galactic Concord's invitation and will be sending representatives to the 243rd Summit. Coordinates for our arrival have been attached. That's it? Kate asked. No explanation for 3 centuries of silence? That's it, John confirmed, but they're coming. After all this time, Earth is finally joining the galactic community. The news spread quickly through Concord headquarters. Earth's sudden interest in galactic politics became the main topic of conversation. Some were excited about the prospect of Earth finally taking its place among the stars. Others were suspicious of this sudden change of heart. Why now? Asked Delegate Sam Peterson, head of the Terran Observation Committee, during the emergency meeting called to discuss Earth's response. After ignoring us for so long, why suddenly decide to attend? Perhaps they've reached a level of development where they feel ready to engage, suggested Council Member Lisa White, one of the more optimistic members. Or perhaps they've detected our resource operations at the edge of their space, said General Kevin Harris of the Concord Defense Force, voicing what many were thinking but few wanted to say aloud. The truth was, while Earth had been ignoring the Concord had not been ignoring Earth. Several member species had been conducting mining operations in systems just beyond what they believed was Earth's detection range. It wasn't technically illegal. Earth had never signed the resource sharing treaties, but it wasn't entirely ethical either. Whatever their reasons, said High Counselor Ben Ford, we must prepare to welcome them properly. This could be the beginning of a new era of cooperation. The meeting concluded with preparations being made for Earth's arrival. The usual protocols for first-time attendees were put into action, welcome ceremonies planned, accommodation prepared, cultural briefings distributed. No one thought to ask about the coordinates Earth had sent for their arrival. No one noticed. They weren't the standard docking coordinates for diplomatic vessels. On the day of the summit, representatives from 17 different species gathered at the massive space station that served as the Concord's meeting place. The station orbited a neutral star, designed as a place where all species could meet comfortably despite their different environmental needs. John Miller stood in the observation deck, watching as ships arrived from across the galaxy. The Archelian vessels with their distinctive spiral patterns, the crystalline ships of the Proxima Alliance, the living vessels of the Gaia Collective, grown rather than built. "Any sign of the Earth delegation?" Kate asked, joining him at the window. "Not yet," John replied. "But they should be arriving soon. I wonder what their ship will look like. We've never seen their FTL technology in action." "I'm more curious about who they're sending," Kate said. "Our government has been so secretive about their plans." John was about to respond when alarms began to sound throughout the station. Red lights flashed, and the station's AI announced, "Attention all delegates. Multiple unidentified vessels approaching. Please remain calm and proceed to your designated meeting areas." John rushed to the main control room, Kate close behind. The displays showed a spatial distortion forming near the station, but not at the designated arrival point for diplomatic vessels. This was much closer, almost alongside the station itself. "What's happening?" demanded High Counselor Ford, who had also hurried to the control room. "Someone's dropping out of FTL practically on top of us," said the station's navigation officer. It's a lot of ships." The first vessel appeared out of the distortion. It was massive, at least 3 times the size of the largest Concorde warship. Its hull was dark, almost black, with lines of blue energy pulsing along its surface. It was clearly a warship, bristling with what could only be weapon systems, and it wasn't alone. More ships appeared behind it, dozens of them. Then scores, large and small, but all with the same threatening appearance. A fleet of warships arranging themselves in a precise formation around the station. "Those are Earth ships," Kate whispered, her face pale. "That's the United Earth Federation emblem. On the largest ship's hull, a simple blue circle containing the outline of Earth's continents was illuminated, the communications system chimed, and a human face appeared on the main screen. A woman with short gray hair and a stern expression, wearing what was clearly a military uniform. "This is Admiral Susan Taylor of the United Earth Federation's 7th Fleet," she said, her voice calm and authoritative. "On behalf of Earth, I extend greetings to the Galactic Concorde. We apologize for our prolonged absence from these proceedings." She paused, and the smallest hint of a smile appeared on her face. "We are here now," she continued, "and request permission to dock and join the summit." No one spoke. No one moved. They all stared at the screen, then at the display showing the massive fleet surrounding their station. Earth had skipped every galactic summit for centuries. Now they had arrived armed to the teeth. And the Galactic Concorde was about to find out why. Admiral Susan Taylor stood tall on the bridge of the UEF Intrepid. The massive ship served as the flagship of Earth's fleet. Behind her, 87 warships held position around the Galactic Summit Station, the site of the alien diplomats. Shocked faces on the viewscreen pleased her, though she kept her expression neutral. "They're taking their time responding," said Lieutenant Alan Garcia from his station. "Their systems show increased energy readings. I think they're powering up defensive measures." Susan nodded. "Let them. We're not here to fight unless provoked." Dr. Paul Wright, the fleet's chief advisor on alien politics, approached the admiral. He was a thin man with kind eyes that contrasted with his serious expression. "This is the moment that will define Earth's place in the galaxy," he said quietly. 300 years of silence ended with this show of force. "Not force?" Susan corrected. "Strength, there's a difference." On the station, chaos had erupted in the control room. Delegates from 17 species argued loudly about how to respond to Earth's unexpected arrival. "We should activate all defensive systems," shouted a representative from the militant Orion Alliance. "No! That could be seen as an act of aggression," countered Lisa White. "We need to respond diplomatically first." High Counselor Ben Ford raised his hands for silence. When the room finally quieted, he turned to Kate Brown. "You're human. What does this mean? Why would Earth come like this after centuries of isolation?" Kate shook her head. "I've been away from Earth for 15 years. I'm as surprised as you are." John Miller studied the fleet's formation on the display. "Notice how they're positioned," he said. "It's a perfect defensive array. They're not threatening to attack, but they're ready if we make a move against them." Ben. Ford made his decision. Open a channel to their flagship. When Admiral Taylor's face appeared again on the screen, Ford spoke carefully. "This is High Counselor Ben Ford of the Galactic Concord. Your arrival is unexpected. The Concord welcomes Earth representatives, but we are concerned by your military presence." Susan's expression remained calm. "We understand your concern, Counselor. However, Earth has its reasons for caution. We request permission to send a small delegation aboard your station to explain our position." Ford looked at his advisors, who nodded reluctantly. "Permission granted. We will prepare a docking bay for your shuttle." 2 hours later, a small Earth shuttle detached from the Intrepid and approached the station. Inside, Admiral Taylor reviewed her plan with Dr. Wright and the 5 security officers accompanying them. "Remember, we're here to negotiate, not threaten," she told them. "But we also won't back down. Earth has been patient for centuries. That patience has ended." When their shuttle docked, they were met by a delegation led by High Counselor Ford. The aliens tried to hide their nervousness at the sight of the armed human guards, but their body language betrayed them. "Welcome to the Concord Summit Station," Ford said. "We have prepared a meeting room where we can discuss Earth's sudden interest in galactic politics." Susan nodded. "Lead the way, Counselor." As they walked through the station, Susan observed everything with a trained eye. The technology was advanced, but not beyond what Earth had developed. The various alien species they passed stared openly at the humans, some with curiosity, others with clear fear. In the meeting room, representatives from the most powerful Concord species waited. Susan recognized them from Earth's intelligence files: the four-eyed Arcalians, the crystalline Proximans, the plant-like Gaons, and several others. When everyone was seated, Ford spoke first. "Now, Admiral Taylor, perhaps you can explain why Earth has chosen this moment to join the galactic community, and why you felt it necessary to bring a war fleet to a peaceful summit." Susan looked around the table calmly before answering. "For 300 years, Earth has received your invitations. For 300 years, we have watched and listened. Not out of disinterest, but out of caution." She activated a small device she had brought with her. A holographic display appeared above the table, showing star charts of the systems surrounding Earth's solar system. "These are our neighboring systems," she continued. "And these ... The display changed to show mining operations, military outposts, and research stations. "These are your operations within what Earth considers its sphere of influence." The aliens shifted uncomfortably in their seats. "You thought we couldn't detect them," Susan said. "You thought we were blind to your activities just beyond what you believed was our detection range. You were wrong." "Those operations are perfectly legal," protested one of the Arcalian representatives. "Earth never claimed those systems." "We never claimed them because we were never invited to the table when you divided up the galaxy," Susan replied evenly. "That changes today." Dr. Wright stepped forward. "Earth has been monitoring all Concord communications for generations. We know about your resource wars, your territorial disputes, your political games. We chose to stay silent while we built our strength and studied your civilizations." A human woman Susan didn't recognize spoke up from the Concord side of the table. "I'm Delegate Mary Peterson of the Terran Observation Committee. If Earth felt excluded, why not simply respond to our invitations earlier? Why this display of military power?" Susan looked directly at her. "Would you have taken us seriously without it? Would our concerns about your encroachment on our borders have been addressed if we came with a single diplomatic vessel?" Before anyone could answer, Lieutenant Garcia's voice came through Susan's communicator. "Admiral, we're detecting energy buildups at 3 Concord military outposts near our position. They appear to be mobilizing." Susan's expression hardened as she looked at Ford. "It seems some members of the Concord are making preparations for conflict. I suggest you order them to stand down immediately." Ford looked alarmed and turned to an aide, speaking quickly in a language the translation devices didn't catch. The aide rushed from the room. "A misunderstanding, I'm sure," Ford said, tension clear in his voice. "Now, perhaps we can discuss what exactly Earth wants from the Concorde." Susan leaned forward. "It's simple. We want what we've always wanted: security for our people and recognition of our sovereignty. We want a fair share of the resources in our region of space. And we want answers about certain Concorde research projects that our intelligence suggests might pose a threat to Earth." The meeting room grew quiet. The secret was out. Earth hadn't been ignoring the galaxy. They had been watching everything, building their strength and waiting for the right moment to reveal themselves, and that moment had arrived. The emergency session of the Galactic Concorde began 3 hours after Admiral Taylor's revelations. The grand meeting chamber was filled with representatives from all 17 member species. The tension in the room was thick enough to cut with a knife. Admiral Susan Taylor sat with Dr. Wright and their security team at one end of the large circular table. The Earth delegation looked calm and collected compared to the nervous aliens. High Counselor Ben Ford called the session to order. "This emergency meeting will address the concerns raised by the Earth delegation and discuss their request for membership in the Galactic Concorde." A tall, blue-skinned alien stood up immediately. "Membership? They arrive with warships and demand a seat at our table? This is outrageous." Susan recognized him as Representative Carl Davis of the Arcturus Collective, known for their aggressive expansion policies. "The United Earth Federation comes in peace," Susan said firmly. "Our fleet is here for protection, not aggression. Given what we've learned about Concorde operations near our borders, our caution seems justified." "What operations?" asked the plant-like Gaian delegate. Her leafy skin rustled with agitation. In response, Dr. Wright activated his holographic projector again. This time, it displayed detailed surveillance footage. The images showed Concorde ships extracting resources from systems just beyond Sol's traditional borders. Other footage revealed military outposts with weapons pointed toward Earth's solar system. "For centuries, you've been helping yourselves to resources in what you thought was our blind spot," Susan explained. "All while positioning military assets that could threaten our home." The chamber erupted in protests and denials. Some delegates looked genuinely shocked, while others avoided eye contact entirely. High Counselor Ford raised his hands for silence. "These are serious accusations. However, those systems were never claimed by Earth. The Concorde assigned them based on our expansion protocols. Protocols we were never invited to help create," Dr. Wright pointed out. "Earth received invitations to your summits, yes, but never information about these resource allocation decisions." A new figure approached the center of the chamber. She was human, wearing the formal robes of a Concorde official. Susan recognized her from the intelligence files as Elizabeth Moore, one of the few humans who had engaged with the Concorde over the years. "If I may speak," Elizabeth said, addressing both sides, "I've served as humanity's unofficial representative to the Concorde for 20 years. What Admiral Taylor says is true. The Concorde has systematically excluded Earth from resource decisions, while exploiting systems near Sol." Murmurs spread through the chamber. Elizabeth's words carried weight, as she had been trusted by the Concorde for years. "But there's something else the Admiral hasn't mentioned," Elizabeth continued, looking directly at Susan. "Something that explains Earth's sudden interest in joining the Concorde now, after centuries of isolation." Susan's face remained impassive, but inwardly she was surprised. How much did Elizabeth Moore know about Earth's real motivations? Elizabeth turned to address the entire chamber. "The Concorde's deep space monitoring stations detected something 3 years ago. Something approaching from beyond the galaxy's edge. The Council classified this information, but I believe Earth has independently discovered the same threat." The chamber went completely silent. Susan exchanged a glance with Dr. Wright. "Is this true, Admiral?" Ford asked quietly. Susan paused, then nodded. "Our long-range detection systems identified an unknown mass moving toward our galaxy 5 years ago. We've been tracking it since then." Based on its energy signature and movement patterns, we believe it's not a natural phenomenon. Why didn't you share this information? Demanded Carl Davis. Why didn't you? Susan countered. Your Concord detected it too, according to Elizabeth, yet kept it secret even from your own member worlds. High Counselor Ford looked uncomfortable. The council felt it would cause unnecessary panic. We needed time to analyze the threat before making it public. Dr. Wright spoke up. Earth made the same decision, for similar reasons, but we also accelerated our defense preparations. The fleet you see outside isn't just a show of force for this meeting, it's part of our response to what's coming. The implications of this revelation washed over the chamber. The petty politics and resource disputes suddenly seemed small compared to a potential threat from beyond the galaxy. What exactly is approaching? Asked a small reptilian delegate. Susan shook her head. We don't know for certain. But it's large, it's moving with purpose, and it's accelerating. Based on current trajectories, it will reach the outer systems of this galaxy within 5 years. Elizabeth Moore moved to stand beside Susan, symbolically bridging the gap between Earth and the Concord. This is why Earth is here now. Not just to address past wrongs, but to prepare for a future that might threaten us all. High Counselor Ford looked thoughtful. If what you both say is true, then we face a situation unprecedented in Concord history. A potential external threat that concerns all our worlds? And Earth, Susan added firmly. Ford nodded slowly. And Earth, perhaps this common concern provides a foundation for moving forward together. On the Intrepid, Lieutenant Alan Garcia monitored the communications from the summit meeting. Beside him, Security Chief Olivia Ward watched the tactical display showing the positions of both Earth and Concord vessels. The Concord ships that were powering up have stood down, Olivia reported. They're returning to standard patrol patterns. Alan nodded. Looks like the Admiral's diplomacy is working. Or they're just buying time, Olivia said skeptically. The Concord has kept secrets for centuries. They won't change overnight. Maybe not, Alan agreed. But they might change when they understand what's coming. Back in the chamber, Susan presented Earth's formal request for Concord membership. The United Earth Federation seeks equal standing among the Concord nations, with all the rights and responsibilities that entails. We also request an immediate joint task force to investigate the approaching anomaly. High Counselor Ford looked around the chamber, gauging the reactions of the other delegates. After a moment, he spoke. I propose we put Earth's membership to an immediate vote, given the extraordinary circumstances. The voting process was quick. Despite some opposition, the majority of delegates supported Earth's admission. The decision was influenced both by the evidence Earth had presented about Concord operations and by the shared concern over the approaching threat. When the final vote was tallied, Ford turned to Admiral Taylor. By the authority of the Galactic Concord, I welcome Earth as our 18th member world. The joint task force will be established immediately. Susan nodded, her face serious. Earth accepts membership and pledges to work with all Concord worlds to face what's coming. The first step had been taken. After centuries of isolation, Earth had joined the galactic community, but the greatest challenges still lay ahead. 1 week had passed since Earth joined the Galactic Concord. The summit station buzzed with activity as the joint task force took shape. Earth and Concord ships now patrolled together, an uneasy alliance born of necessity. Admiral Susan Taylor stood in the newly established Earth office on the station. The room was simple but functional, with screens showing both the fleet movements and the data on the approaching threat. Dr. Paul Wright entered, carrying a data tablet. The Concord has shared their full records on the anomaly, he said, his expression serious. Their data matches ours in most aspects, but they have better long-range imaging. Susan studied the images on the tablet. The object or objects coming toward the galaxy appeared as a dark mass against the stars. Any new insights? Yes, and they're troubling, Paul said. Based on combined Earth and Concord calculations, the anomaly is not just approaching, it's accelerating. Estimated arrival time is now 4 years, not 5. Susan frowned. That changes our preparation timeline significantly. A chime at the door announced Elizabeth Moore. Since Earth's dramatic entrance, Elizabeth had become the bridge between the Earth delegation and the Concord leadership. Her decades of working with aliens made her invaluable. "Admiral," she greeted. "The Defense Committee is ready for you." Susan nodded and followed Elizabeth through the station's corridors. They passed aliens of various species, some who still looked at the humans with suspicion, others with newfound respect. "How are the Concord leaders really feeling about our presence?" Susan asked quietly. Elizabeth smiled slightly. "Scared, impressed, and annoyed in that order. They're scared of what's coming, impressed by Earth's technological advancement, and annoyed that we kept it secret for so long." "We could say the same about them," Susan remarked. The Defense Committee meeting room was large and circular, with representatives from Earth and 7 major Concord species. At the center was a holographic display showing the galaxy, with a red marker indicating the approaching anomaly. High Counselor Ben Ford opened the session. "This committee has been formed to coordinate our response to the extragalactic threat. Admiral Taylor will present Earth's defense proposals." Susan stepped forward. "Thank you, Counselor. Earth proposes a 3-layered defense strategy. First, an early warning network extending beyond the galaxy's edge. Second, fortified defense stations at key entry points. Third, a unified fleet drawing ships from all member worlds." Carl Davis of the Arcturus Collective scoffed. "And I suppose Earth's ships would lead this unified fleet?" "Leadership should be based on capability," Susan replied evenly. "If your ships are more advanced than ours, we would gladly serve under Arcturus command." Davis didn't respond. Everyone in the room knew Earth's military technology had surpassed most Concord species. "The real question," said the Gaian representative, "is what exactly we're defending against. We need more information before committing resources." Susan turned to Dr. Wright, who activated his own data device. The holographic display zoomed in on the anomaly, showing the best combined images from Earth and Concord sources. "Based on energy, signatures and movement patterns," Dr. Wright explained. "We believe this is not a natural phenomenon. The mass appears to consist of multiple objects moving in formation consistent with a fleet of vessels." The room grew quiet as the implications sank in. "You're suggesting an invasion," said a crystalline Proximan delegate, his voice creating musical tones. "We're suggesting the possibility," Susan corrected. "Which is why our first priority must be better intelligence. Earth is prepared to share our long-range scanner technology if the Concord will share their deep space imaging systems." On the other side of the station, Lieutenant Alan Garcia was working with Concord engineers to integrate Earth's communication systems with the station's network. The process was going slowly, partly due to technical differences and partly due to lingering distrust. "Your encryption protocols are unlike anything we've seen," said John Miller, who had been assigned as the liaison between Earth's technical team and the Concord staff. "We developed them independently," Alan explained, carefully avoiding mention of how Earth had actually reverse-engineered and improved upon Concord transmissions they had intercepted over the centuries. Their work was interrupted by an urgent message from both Earth and Concord command centers. Alan checked his device. "We need to get to the main observatory immediately." When they arrived, the observatory was already crowded with officials from various species. The massive viewing screen showed a real-time feed from a deep space monitoring station. "What's happening?" Alan asked Olivia Ward, who had arrived before him. "The anomaly just did something unexpected," she replied, her eyes fixed on the screen. "Watch." On the display, the dark mass that had been steadily approaching suddenly split into multiple smaller formations. They moved with precision like a well-rehearsed military maneuver. "It's definitely artificial," someone whispered. High Counselor. Ford and Admiral Taylor entered the observatory together. The room fell silent as everyone turned to them for guidance. "The joint long-range scan just completed," Ford announced. "We now have confirmation that the anomaly consists of artificial vessels of unknown origin. Based on their formation changes, they appear to be conducting strategic maneuvers." Susan stepped forward. "In light of this development, Earth is formally requesting that the Concord declare a state of galactic defense emergency. We need to accelerate our preparation efforts. The observatory erupted in nervous conversation. The threat was no longer theoretical, it was real, and it was coming. Back in the Earth office later that day, Susan met with her core team. The Concord Council has approved the emergency declaration, she informed them. All member worlds are now on alert. How are they responding to our defense proposals? Dr. Wright asked. Most are on board, Susan said. Fear is a powerful motivator. The resource disputes that seemed so important a week ago have suddenly become secondary concerns. Elizabeth Moore, who had joined the meeting, spoke up. There's something else you should know. I've been reviewing the Concord's classified archives since we gained member access. There are references to a similar incursion that occurred over 50,000 years ago. Everyone turned to her in surprise. The records are fragmented, Elizabeth continued, but they suggest an advanced civilization once entered this galaxy from outside, leading to a conflict that lasted decades. The Concord's oldest member species have legends about the time of darkness that might relate to this event. Susan absorbed this information with a grim expression. So this may not be first contact, but a return visit. The implications hung heavy in the air. Earth had arrived armed to the teeth just in time to help the galaxy face a threat that might have once nearly destroyed it. We need to learn everything we can from those ancient records, Susan ordered. And we need to prepare, as if war is coming, because it probably is. 3 months had passed since the confirmation of the alien fleet approaching the galaxy. The Galactic Concord had transformed from a political body into a war council. Earth's military expertise, once viewed with suspicion, was now the cornerstone of the galaxy's defense strategy. Admiral Susan Taylor stood on the bridge of the UEF Intrepid, watching as ships from 12 different species practiced formation maneuvers. The combined fleet was impressive, over 300 vessels of various sizes and capabilities, all working together for the first time in galactic history. They're improving, commented Lieutenant Alan Garcia, who had been promoted to serve as Susan's chief tactical officer. Response time is down 15% from last week. Susan nodded, but still not good enough. The enemy will be here in less than 4 years. We need seamless coordination by then. Dr. Paul Wright entered the bridge, accompanied by Elizabeth. Moore both looked excited. Admiral, we've made a breakthrough, Elizabeth said. The ancient records I found have led us to something incredible. Paul activated the holographic display. We've been working with Concord archaeologists to decipher texts from the oldest member species. They refer to a weapon system used against the previous invaders. The display showed what appeared to be a massive ring-shaped structure. They called it the Galactic Shield, Elizabeth explained. A network of interconnected energy projection stations that created a barrier the invaders couldn't penetrate. Susan studied the images with interest. Do we know how it worked? Or where these stations were located? That's the breakthrough, Paul said excitedly. We found coordinates for 3 of the stations. One is in a system near Arcturus territory. Another is in unclaimed space. And the third, he paused for effect, is in Earth's solar system, specifically in the Kuiper belt beyond Neptune. Susan's eyes widened. In our home system, all this time? We believe it's been dormant for thousands of years, Elizabeth said. The ancient civilization that built it is long gone, but their technology might still be functional. This discovery changed everything. Susan immediately called for a meeting of the Galactic Defense Council, the new name for the committee overseeing the response to the approaching threat. 2 hours later, in the council chamber on the summit station, representatives from all 18 member worlds listened as Susan and Elizabeth presented their findings. If we can locate and reactivate these stations, Susan explained, we might be able to create a defensive barrier that would stop the invasion before it begins. High Counselor Ben Ford, who now served as head of the Defense Council, looked thoughtful. This is remarkable news. But can we be certain this ancient technology will work against the current threat? We can't, Susan admitted. But the record suggests the previous invaders were forced to retreat when the shield was activated. It's the best option we have. Carl Davis of the Arcturus Collective, who had become less hostile toward Earth in recent months, spoke up. The station in our territory, we've detected unusual energy readings from that system for centuries. We always assumed it was a natural phenomenon. We need to send exploration teams to all 3 locations immediately, Susan proposed. I volunteer Earth ships to investigate the station in our system. The Council quickly approved the plan. Within days, specialized teams were dispatched to each location. Susan chose to lead the Earth mission personally, taking the Intrepid and 2 support vessels to the outer reaches of the solar system. As they approached the coordinates in the Kuiper Belt, sensors detected a large object hidden among the icy bodies orbiting far from the Sun. There it is, Alan said, pointing to the view screen. Definitely artificial and matches the designs from the ancient records. The structure was massive, a ring-shaped station nearly 20 kilometers in diameter. Despite its age, it showed no signs of damage or decay. Its surface was covered with intricate patterns that seemed to glow faintly, even though the station appeared dormant. Prepare a boarding team, Susan ordered. I want to see this thing up close. Hours later, Susan floated through the ancient station's corridors with Dr. Wright and a team of engineers. The interior was surprisingly well preserved with control panels and technology unlike anything they had seen before. It's remarkable, Paul said, his voice filled with awe. This technology is at least 50,000 years old, yet it's more advanced than anything the Concorde has developed. Susan touched one of the walls, feeling a slight vibration. It feels ... alive somehow. Their exploration led them to what appeared to be the central control room. As they entered, soft lights activated automatically, illuminating a circular chamber with a central platform. It's responding to our presence, Paul noted. The system might still be operational. Before they could investigate further, Susan received an urgent communication from the Intrepid. Admiral, we're receiving transmissions from the other exploration teams. They found the other stations, and they're also showing signs of activation. It's like the whole network is waking up. At the same time, the Defense Council sent an alert. The approaching fleet had suddenly accelerated. New calculations put their arrival in just over 1 year much sooner than expected. They must know we found the shield technology, Susan realized. They're trying to get here before we can activate it. The race against time had begun. Over the next months, scientists and engineers from all Concorde species worked together to understand and restore the ancient shield network. Earth's technological expertise proved crucial in deciphering the alien systems. 1 year later, as the enemy fleet reached the edge of the galaxy, representatives from all 18 worlds gathered at the summit station. The 3 shield stations had been reactivated and were ready to be synchronized. Susan stood before the Defense Council for the final authorization. The enemy will enter weapons range in less than 6 hours. Once activated, the shield will create an energy barrier that should prevent their advance. High Counselor Ford looked at each delegate in turn. All nodded their agreement. Proceed, Admiral Taylor. From the control room of the station in Earth system, Susan gave the command. Activate the galactic shield. Across vast interstellar distances, the 3 ancient stations hummed to life. Beams of energy shot outward, connecting to form a vast web that spread across the galaxy's edge. A shimmering barrier appeared, visible. Even from planets light years away, as the enemy fleet approached, their vessels slowed and then stopped before the energy barrier. Probes they sent forward were instantly vaporized upon contact. On the summit station's observation deck, Susan stood with Elizabeth, Paul, and representatives from all Concorde worlds. They watched in silence as the enemy fleet tried and failed to penetrate the shield. It worked, Elizabeth whispered. After 50,000 years, it still worked. This is just the beginning, Susan cautioned. They'll look for ways around the shield. We need to prepare for a long standoff, but for now, at least, the galaxy was safe. The threat that had united former enemies into allies had been contained. Earth had arrived armed to the teeth just in time to help the Concorde rediscover its oldest defense. As Susan looked around at the diverse beings standing with her creatures that would have been unimaginable to her ancestors, she felt a sense of pride. Humanity had finally taken its place among the stars. They had come late to the galactic community, but perhaps they had arrived exactly when they were needed most. Behind the shield, the enemy waited. The real challenges were still to come. But together, united as 18 worlds instead of 17, the Galactic Concorde would face whatever the future held.